Let's just get straight into it. I am very well aware that I am most likely making this video in vain, meaning that no one at Wanda Cinema Games, which is the company developing the Gurren Lagann mobile game, will actually see this video or receive any of the feedback on their game. However, as a player who desperately wants to see this game succeed, and possibly as the only content creator, albeit a small one, that plans to cover this game for more than just the one-off video, I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice, as well as all the other players, to not voice my opinions on this game and how it could improve. With that being said, these are my 5 main desires that I would love to see implemented in this game. Some of them are related to the company as a whole, and others are lesser gameplay tweaks. I'll try to list my most prevalent ones first, but there are also chapters on this video so you can skip around. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The first one is more interactive gameplay. Currently, the gameplay loop is to simply occasionally summon for more characters, upgrade them every so often, and then play the story until your characters are underleveled. The actual combat is almost non-existent. The only time a player needs to utilize some sort of strategy is in the arena mode where you're actually fighting another player's team, and the strategy in this case is only really localized to the player changing the positions of their team or occasionally swapping out a character before battle. Unfortunately, this isn't really an easy thing to request to be changed due to the nature of the style of game, which is a pseudo-AFK game, but I do have one solution that I think would help a lot. Slow down the battles or rounds, and give the players the option to activate their gunman's ultimate moves manually. This could slow down the gameplay loop significantly, which would help players get less bored with the game, and it would also introduce more real strategy because now the player has to decide things such as when to use their ultimates, the cooldown, who to target, and so on. And I imagine this wouldn't be too intrusive of a feature to add either, because since the battles are already automated, they could just add an auto button where the battles would play out as they do now, and the player wouldn't have to worry about manually using their ultimates. The second is summoning for characters as well as gunmen. I imagine this statement might be a bit more contentious, so let me explain why it would be a good thing for both the game and the players. Let's not pretend like summoning and buying in-game currency isn't a major way for these game companies to make money. So ultimately, more things to summon for would increase the revenue for the developers, barring the potential extra work it would be to add an entirely new system and summon pool into the game. However, an addition like this would also provide massive benefits to the players as well. For one, including characters and not only the mechs increases the overall hype around summoning because now there are multiple pieces to unlocking a unit's full potential, more on that later. And secondly, and most importantly, adding separate characters into the game does not require any more in-game currency than you would normally spend on acquiring the mechs. In many games, and the system I'm basing this idea off of is used in Iron Saga, which is another mech mobile game and has even done a collab with Gurren Lagann before. By the way, I made a video on it, click here. And the way the system is utilized in Iron Saga is that each character has their own intimacy gauge, and after you fill that gauge enough by interacting with them or giving them gifts, they join your crew and are now yours to use. The system is already extremely free-to-play friendly, and if the devs were to implement something like this, they could also add characters into a rotating banner for the players that do want to spend more resources and get a character faster or easier. And as a bonus, there's already an intimacy system built into the game with Nia, so it would be relatively easy to repurpose that code into a generic intimacy system for all the other relevant characters. Now, where the gameplay loop changes and how these additions will improve the game is you can now choose which character you want to put into a gunman, and depending on that character and the mech, the character will give different effects to those gunmen. Those effects could include plus 12% HP, or plus 5% damage reduction, or even do an additional effect from their ultimate. And characters inside their own gunman might give better or more boosts. This would significantly change the combat by increasing the player's skill ceiling of making teams. Players can now utilize certain characters or effects while building their team, and make pilot mech combos that adds an entirely new level of strategy. The third is to make the characters or gunmen into actual cards. The game is tagged and described with the word cards, and yet there's no card system whatsoever in this game. I imagine this could have been a translation error or just a buzzword to include in the advertising, since language like that is often tagged in various mobile games, but it gives the player the wrong idea about the gameplay, so I would either like to see this concept utilized in-game or removed from the advertising. With that being said, there is a way to utilize this concept that, in my opinion, would drastically improve the quality of the summoning in this game. When you summon in-game, the animation plays, and when the characters appear, they show up as their in-game 3D model. Overall, it's fine, but it feels very basic. And on top of that, the characters' 3D models are displayed all over the game, so I imagine that seeing them like that would get old quick. The solution that I propose is to actually display the units as cards. Now let me explain what I mean by that. When you look at a character in the upgrade menu, you're looking at a card instead of the 3D model of the character. The higher rarity cards would have better art or more shaders and effects. Additionally, when you summon, the character is displayed as a card, and then the 3D model could also pop in and do its pose or whatever, like how it already does. In battles, the characters would still be the same as how they are now, as 3D models. but adding more buffering between how often you see them, as well as including stylish, and more importantly, collectible art, you give the player something more to look forward to while summoning, which ultimately helps the game by giving more of a reason to summon for more characters. The fourth is a better UI or hub. I'm gonna say what everyone's thinking about this. The game, as it stands now, looks like an asset flip pump and dump. I'm not sure if this was the style they were going for, or if they just don't have the resources to put into making a better hub area, but something needs to change. I'm not saying they need to make a full overhaul of the hub into something like Grand Cross, but at the very least, I think they need to change many of the placements of their individual game modes. Lots of the game modes are hidden inside the Adventure tab that deserve their own dedicated button on the hub, such as PvP or the Arena. Currently, there are lots of little mini-games and game modes to play, and adding them all to the hub would make it way too cumbersome and intimidating to navigate, but I think compressing certain things into their own menu, such as the shop with the village, and promoting some of the other game modes, like Teplin, would make the game feel much more fleshed out. My fifth point is more or different upgrade paths. A lot of what I've been suggesting so far would fit into this category, but this point is specifically in relation to the accessory system that is already in this game, if you can even call it that. The accessory system is just a little extra power-up where you equip accessories to boost your stats. It's super bare bones and honestly a little boring. My solution to this would be implementing an accessory or gear system similar to Grand Cross, where you can give gear specific attributes like more speed or defense at the cost of some in-game currency. I imagine this would be particularly helpful, especially given that the speed system is currently already in the game. Right now, there's no meaningful way to increase a character's speed stat, so adding the option for improving a specific stat would be immensely helpful for a support or DPS character, and, say it with me, add more strategy into the game. And finally, I have one more bonus point for you that is arguably the most important. We desperately need more communication from the developers. Player feedback and communication is the sole thing that keeps these mobile games alive, and currently, we players have little to no avenue of communication apart from this game's Facebook page, which, let's be honest, is not at all an adequate form of communication. In my dreams, Wanda Cinema Games would open a dedicated global support and development team, but truthfully, I don't ever see that happening. The support message feature from the early access is a decent sign that they may actually care about their players' feedback, but only time can tell. Any form of communication between the players and the devs would be welcome, and not an impossibility either, seeing as that the Saint Saida Legend of Justice mobile game does have their own official Discord server, and that is also developed by Wanda Cinema Games. But with that being said, that's all for this list. Again, I am hopeful, but not at all expecting this to ever reach anyone at Wanda Cinema Games. If by chance they do see this, then by all means please email me with any way I can provide assistance and make the players' voices heard. Let me know if you guys have any wishes for this game in the comments, or even if you think my list should be changed. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.